Why a modern hippies who fall for conspiracies more? I recently ditched my 9-to-5 great job and career in London to pursue my dream of world traveling. Yes, bad timing. I know. I am currently in India hanging out and bonding with a lot of people who embraced this nomadic and free lifestyle, and I noticed most of them believe in conspiracies, 5G, fluoride, RFIDs, Novax, you name it, and pseudoscience/New Age, crystal healing, homeopathy. That applies to the ones who dropped school and started traveling early, but also to people with higher education or is smarter. Coming across this wasn't as common back in normal life. Although this lifestyle makes me happier and I want to keep going for a few years at least, I'm starting to question whether ditching the city and the office was a bad idea, because I now seem to be part of a demographic that is more likely to believe in bullshit and wonder whether I just made my life worse and I'm gonna get dumber or be a loser. There is correlation with anomia and insecure job and life circumstances. That pretty much fits the demographic we're talking about. The most popular theory among psychologists is that people feel a loss of control and therefore rather believe in a secret group controlling everything than believing things happen at random. I am not a big fan of that theory, tbh. Apart from that, you are in India, which is a destination for spiritual travelers. So you experience a selection bias of travelers right now. Especially Goa is very famous for that. In my travels I experienced similar things, especially Goa, Karnataka and Varanasi. From eating light to homeopathy, almost everybody was into something of that kind. In other countries you will find less of that. E.g. SEA is full of Australians who want to get wasted. Have fun with your travels, don't let Goa ruin your experience. As a tip, Nepal is very beautiful, especially in the spring. People are nicer in my experience and you get around 90% less New Age hippies. It's way less crowded, relaxed, and you will be safer from corona. It's a little more expensive though. Great question. I'm going to attempt to answer your question in several parts, but in this forum, the distillation of this topic for the sake of brevity makes me queasy. As always, it's complicated. Further, without access to this specific population for psychological measures, my answer to your question is largely speculative and is, sadly, US-centric based on available data. But disclaimers aside, let's start with the literature. 1. The individual. Research suggests there is a relationship between components of schizotypy and conspiracy belief. Specifically, there seems to be a greater tendency in conspiracists for magical thinking, adhering to odd beliefs, and ideas of reference, i.e. the belief that disparate events are connected. At least one study uncovered the tendency for conspiracists to consider themselves critical free thinkers and seekers. 2. The group. There's an ongoing debate in social science about whether contagion theory can be applied to ideas. There are arguments both in support of and in objection to this notion, popularized by Seth Godin. Regardless, we're pretty sure that our mindsets are influenced by those in our social circles. The socialization of information is an entirely different post, but it comes down to the old birds of a feather trope. If your social circle is comprised of conspiracy adherents, those conspiratorial ideas are normalized through socialization and are therefore deemed more plausible over time. 3. The society. Postmodern theorists point to the erosion of epistemic, ontological, and existential authority which has arisen during the last century or so, but have accelerated since the counterculture movement of the 1960s. These factors include our current mass-mediated information environment and the growing secularization of societies. In other words, we used to look to some kind of authority, religious, governmental, or otherwise to dispense the truth and meaning for us. Now most of us realize that outside of empirical measures, truth is both contextual and subjective, creating a vacuum. The search for meaning follows. Conspiracy beliefs are common. Something like 80% of Americans don't think we have the whole story on UFOs, for example. There seems to be a difference, however, between the casual tendency for questioning the official story on stuff like UFOs and the pathological adherence to multiple conspiracies and what appears to be the open-source, DIY construction of alternate realities. There's a lot to learn in that area. One may infer from the first 3 factors that those who possess the personality traits mentioned in number 1 run in the social circles described in number 2, and finds themselves in an epistemic vacuum described in number 3 are a walking formula for the type of conspiracy ideation you described. There's far too little data to call it a profile, but it's a decent hypothesis at least. Does this sound like your neo-hippie friends? Conspiracy theories are really just a subset of misinformation, so there are so many, other contributing factors which are probably outside the scope of my answer to your question. Complicating things, of course, is the truism that conspiracies sometimes actually exist. Anyway, I hope this is a decent attempt to answer your question.